Hello, this is Dr. Ralph Oliva with a brief introduction and overview of the concept of the BrandScape. The BrandScape is one of many templates that can be used to describe what you want a brand to mean or can be used to gauge what your brand really means based on input from your customer audience. We define a brand as a relationship with a market that's based on all of the experiences a customer has with the brand that's tied to trademarks or other identifying elements which trigger the brand. You see a trademark or you hear a specific sound and the brand comes to your mind and you get the brand impact and the brand trigger. Brands and branding are about having economic impact for a firm, creating what we call brand equity. And brand equity can be demonstrated in a variety of ways: higher prices, faster uptake. But brands and brand strategy are in place to create an economic impact. Brands work several ways in the mind of the customers, and like any relationship, they're fairly complex. There's a fast top-of-mind reaction, which might be spontaneous, but then there's something going on deeper in the mind that may be unconscious or acting without the person actually knowing that that's going on. And brands can create a propensity to action, which is triggered by some experience which creates the brand response. Usually if you see a trademark or you hear a trade noise or even certain colors, or in the case of people, just seeing someone's face or the way they're dressed can trigger a response. A multidimensional description of what you want the brand to mean or what the brand is can be had using the BrandScape tool. The BrandScape has 4 parts: the brand footprint, which in turn has 3 subparts: the core values, personality, and essence of the brand. It's what's going on deep inside the mind of the customer. The brand's position, which is how it's distinctive from competition. The brand capsule, quick, top-of-mind reaction that you'd like when the brand is triggered. And finally, the brand elements. These are the things that trigger the brand response. BrandScape tool can be helpful in building and tracking a brand's progress, but it's important to know that what a firm can do is create what they want the brand to mean. But as we discuss, firms don't own brands. Firms own trademarks. Firms own brand equity. Only the customer owns the brand and can tell you what the actual BrandScape is, what BrandScape they'll grant or deliver or return to you from your segment, and what the economic impact will be of your brand. So let's go a little deeper into the brand footprint. This is what's going on deep in the subconscious. It's always working. This can be powerfully emotional, and it can be working without it coming to the conscious mind of the customer. And as we've mentioned, 3 distinctive parts of the brand footprint: the core values of the brand, personality of the brand, and the brand essence. The core values of the brand are a description of what the brand's inner driving priorities are, what really is going on deeply inside the brand. The personality of the brand is just as it says, the traits that would describe the brand if it were a person. The brand's essence is a little trickier. It's the central point of the brand's relationship or desired relationship with the customer, and we'll talk more about this. Note that in order for a good, strong BrandScape to develop, obviously the brand has to be relevant to the specific audience. If you're, for example, not a cola drinker, you probably won't have a strong BrandScape for Coca-Cola. So the brand has to be relevant or salient to the customer audience for a good brand footprint to develop. So going a little deeper, the core values of the brand. What are the brand's inner driving priorities? And this is often tied to the brand's history, how it came to be, the overall experiences that people have had with the brand through the years. It stands what the brand will, what will the brand stand for and what will it not stand for? What's on brand and off brand? The brand's core values should be enablers of strategy, the foundation principles behind the brand. And by the way, these should be unique to the brand, not general motherhood. I mean, really all brands want integrity or quality or other words that describe things in a positive way. To get to the core values of a brand, you're describing what's unique to the brand. What can that brand and only that brand own? Some brands develop distinctive personalities. In fact, some brands are personalities, like Madonna is a brand, and it's very, very distinctive and different from Lady Gaga. There are similarities, there are differences. What are the traits that would describe the brand if it were a person? Is the brand distinctly masculine or feminine? Are there some distinguishing attributes? Is there a communication style? You can use words that would describe a personality sometimes to describe a brand. Sometimes the personality is not all that well defined, and in other cases there's a very crisp personality around a brand. Trickier is to describe the brand essence, and I'd actually worked with Kevin Keller and Phil Kotler, noted brand authorities, in coming up with a description of what are the central connection point of a customer to the brand. So this one is tricky, and it's one that's difficult to do and requires a careful turn of thought. And this is from Phil Kotler. The real essence of a brand is not how you want customers to feel about the brand. The essence of your brand is how and what your customers feel about themselves when they encounter your brand. How would you want a customer to feel about themselves when they choose your brand, encounter your brand, or use your brand? If you can write that down, you've done a lot of thinking about what you want your brand to mean. If your consumers can tell you that distinctively, you're getting a real handle on what's going on with your brand and the consumer. This is often not something that can be done easily or consciously. So let's move on. Let's move on now to the next element of the BrandScape, the brand's position. Positioning often resides in the subconscious, but it's closer to the surface and can come into play powerfully as people are making decisions about purchases. The essence of what position or positioning is about is how does this brand relate to the competition? How distinctively different is it from the competitive alternatives that the customer is considering at that moment? The concept of positioning was developed by Al Ries and Jack Trout back in the 1970s, where you put your brand in a competitive frame of reference. What other alternatives, like or unlike, are the customers considering right now to perform a certain function or solve a problem? And what is the unique, distinctive benefit that you want your brand to own relative to that competitive set in the mind of a customer that you understand very well? A template for strong value proposition or positioning is shown here, where you really describe and know the specific customer you're looking at, what their specific needs are, the description of your offering, and real reasons why and that your brand is different from or will beat the competition in a contest with the customer to have them buy. And how are you distinctly different from the next best alternative? And then usually to shore this up, you put proof points in place and how this ties to perhaps the overall vision of the brand. This template can enable you to develop a very strong positioning for your brand or a strong value proposition for your offerings. Now let's move to the top of mind, the brand capsule. What's the quick reaction, the few words that happen when the brand is triggered? Ideally, the brand capsule sits right at the front of the mind, and it'll pop out if you trigger the brand with the customer. It can be good to help the customer develop a capsule. And this will help the customer access the brand. Sometimes brand managers provide a capsule to the customer, and other times customers come up with their own. The brand capsule is typically a very simple phrase around one single idea that ties to the need of the customer. And it's interesting, though, it can be complex. For example, to use Coca-Cola as an example, right now their brand capsule is all about happiness, open happiness. And it talks about the overall quick reaction. What's the quick feeling that will distinguish Coke from other alternatives in the category that they're in? So it's a simple phrase, one idea, relevant to need. The final element of the BrandScape are the brand elements. These are the trademarks, which can be visual, audio, any other method which triggers the brand response, which gets the customer to respond with the brand. They can be chosen to enhance brand awareness and make it easy for the customer to see your brand. So this can be a brand name, a logo, a symbol, but generally these are used very consistently and very congruently with a lot of discipline to develop a strong tie to the brand. For example, the Heinz ketchup bottle shown here hasn't changed much in years. There were lots of distinctive cues. Even the color of the ketchup, which is monitored very carefully, are all things that will trigger the brand response. In the Coca-Cola case here, look at all of the different ways that Coke triggers their brand, from their distinctive logo type to the red color on the can, the shape of the bottle, the swirl. There are many, many ways that Coke triggers the brand and gets the customer to come up with, this is the real Coca-Cola. So the collection of all of those things are the brand elements. So that's a quick review of the elements of the BrandScape: the brand footprint, which in turn has the core values, personality, and essence; the brand position, how is it distinctive from the competition; the top-of-mind capsule; and the brand elements, which trigger the BrandScape response. The BrandScape is a very powerful tool to enable you to describe what you want your brand to mean, or it can be used to gauge what your brand really means coming from the customer base. This is Dr. Ralph Oliva.